Hello everyone, and welcome to another audio here on Real Over Religion. It is I, Johnny Lee, and we are back again with another one. Thank all of you who continue to support this channel. Those of you that are new here, welcome, and I appreciate you. By the time you're listening to this audio, ladies and gentlemen, it will fall on my birthday. I will be turning 40 years old. Not that I care about birthdays, but this one is a milestone for me. You only turn 40 years old once. So I will be celebrating with my family on this day. But then after that, life continues to go on. But I wanted to make an audio because I wanted to discuss or summarize, as I've talked about all of these different points on this channel. But for those of you that are new, I want to summarize what I've been talking about on this channel. Therefore, I titled this video, In 40 Years of Life, I Have Learned That Life is Meaningless and God is Useless. In 40 years of life, I have learned that life is meaningless and God is useless. I'm giving you Christians a break in this audio, even though I will be talking about it to a certain degree, but I'm not going to waste my time going forward on this channel dealing with Christian issues any longer, because I understand that you Christians can't defend the Bible that you believe in. As I've always said, I need for you to show and prove. I'm not going to argue with you about your doctrines and your teachings. I'm just going to get right down to the meat and potatoes of the situation. And as I've told you before, you've got to debate with Mark chapter 16, verse 17 through 18. When you can figure that out, you let me know. But for those of you that are here or new to this channel, I want to build on my philosophy of self-sufficiency, because that is ultimately what this channel is about. Real over religion. Real is just another way of pointing or speaking of reality. Reality over religion. Religion must bow the knee to reality. If science has discovered that our planet is older than 7,000 years, whatever the Bible claims, it must bow the knee to reality. So I've come to learn in my 40 years of life that life is meaningless and God is useless. As some of you may know, my story began with Christianity, being born in it. But I did not seriously commit to Christianity until I was 14 years old. And it was at the age of 34 that I finally said enough of Christianity. And I began to study and look at other information outside of Christianity, and therefore came to the conclusion that Christianity was all made up based on the evidence presented. But even without doing historical evidence and study, we can understand just by observing the physical world that life is meaningless. You say, Johnny Lee, how is that possible? Life is meaningless simply because of the fact that we all die. If you bring a child into the world, they have been guaranteed a death sentence with no guarantee that they will even live out their days. Life, ladies and gentlemen, is meaningless, because if it was meaningful, then we would all live forever on this planet. And I'm speaking to those of you that believe in a divine creator. If you believe in a creator, that means that he had a plan for life, that he designed you for a specific reason. And if he designed you to suffer and die, then what kind of God is this? And I know you have your elaborate stories about how we ended up in this position, but you have no evidence for this. I don't give a damn about the claims that come from the Hebrew Bible, the Christian Bible, or the Quran. I don't care about the stories that explain or try to give God an excuse of why the world ended up the way it did, because if he's omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent, then none of this should have ever happened in the first place. How can an all-knowing, all-powerful God who can be anywhere at any given time allow for suffering and death to exist in the first place? There are children in the world that are waking up at this very moment, starving to death, ribs touching, suffering from sickness and diseases, disabilities, born with cancers. And you have convinced yourself that there is a loving God in the sky who facilitates all of this, and he has a plan for all of it. But yet neither one of you would sign up for any of these things to happen to yourself. But it's okay that it's God's plan as long as that plan isn't happening to you. How selfish and delusional you are. That's why I don't even waste time debating religious people, because you are irrational human animals is what you are. You're so brainwashed that you're willing to give God bail and not even question the irrationality of a creator creating a world with so many flaws and imperfections. But that is because you live your life in fear of the afterlife. But in 40 years of my life, ladies and gentlemen, in the 20 years that I dedicated specifically to the Christian God, I have discovered that he is useless. Because he never, ever helped me in any way, shape, form, or fashion when it came to my finances or any difficult situation that I've been through. You know who's always helped me? Another human being. And of course, the foolish Christians will say that God helps through other human beings. Well, isn't that just convenient? If God is sending human beings to help, then why isn't he helping the children that are starving today? Children, even right now, while you're under the sound of my voice, children are being kidnapped and sold into sex slavery, never to be seen again by their parents. And you want to convince me that there is a loving God in the sky watching all of this happen, and yet he does nothing about it. You say, Johnny Lee, if life is meaningless, then why should we live? To be quite honest with you, that's entirely up to the individual. I am an advocate for being in control of your life, even to the point of whether you choose to participate in it or not. That's an individual choice. I know my reasons for continuing to live, because I don't want to cause pain to the people that I love. But if I had no family, if I had no friends, and I had no opportunities, there's no way I will continue living in this circus called life. If my quality of life is affected, that I cannot see, or I cannot hear, or I cannot walk, I will not participate in this circus. Because life is meaningless, even down to what we do. 100 years from now, no one's going to remember you. Your relatives, if you have children who have children who have children, they're not even going to remember you 100 years from now. Life is meaningless, ladies and gentlemen. The things that you are arguing about and fighting with people today, it's not going to matter 100 years from now. So the best thing that I can teach you, drawing from my experiences in life, is that you do what's best for yourself. Even if that means offending other people, even if that means that you have to lose some relationships with people, you should put your happiness above everything else. Because your mother and father, when they decided to bring you into the world, they did not think about you when they did it. Some of you are accident babies. Some of you were born to negligent parents that just was out having a good time, and you were brought into the world recklessly. Now, some of you may have been planned, but what they didn't think about is the fact that you are being born to guaranteed suffering. most people don't think about it like that because they've been convinced that God, this invisible God that has not been proven, that he had a plan for human life. Be fruitful and multiply. So maybe your parents' intentions were good from a quote-unquote biblical aspect, but the reality of it is that being born into this world is not a good thing because you are guaranteed suffering and a guaranteed death sentence. When I went to this one Christian church years ago, I observed a young little girl in wheelchair bound, born with some type of spinal disability where she could not walk. From observation, she appeared to have some either Down syndrome, something in that family. And her speech was not a normal speech. But her parents said, well, we tell her that God made her special. And as a believer, I shook my head and sighed, and I couldn't comprehend. Why is God not healing this young little girl, that she has to be subjected to this kind of existence? And the parents justify this in their mind by telling her this lie that God made her this way. Imagine how that little girl must feel as she observes quote-unquote normal human beings, healthy human beings walking around. But God decided to take her ability to walk and speak normally away from her. Do you not understand the psychological abuse that could do to a child? And that is what sickens me about religion. It is child abuse, because you rob your child of the ability to have a rational mind, and you instill fear and guilt in them from an early age to control their behavior. Religion does not reform, it only suppresses who you are. That is the reason why these Catholic priests will put their hands on your children. Because religion does not reform, it only suppresses who you really are. If you're a perverted individual that finds attraction to children, hiding inside religion is not going to fix you. The fear and guilt of religion is not going to keep you from behaving the way you truly want to behave. It's the same reason these preachers get caught in adultery, because there is no Holy Spirit living inside of the believer to reform them and make them into a new creature. They do not change the animalistic nature of the human. We are animals, therefore many of us have the propensity towards predatory behavior. But our predatory skills are supposed to be to hunt animals to survive. That's the reason why we have that ability. But some human beings have decided now, since they don't hunt animals anymore, they're going to hunt other human beings. And unfortunately, many of these predators are men that prey on women and children. This is just the reality of what is. But religion does not reform human behavior. We are animals with instincts towards survival, towards selfish pleasures for ourselves. And since life is centered around survival, the ultimate end of life is death, therefore meaningless. You're surviving long enough until you die. All living is just the prolonging of suffering until you finally die off. And what evolution did was create these mechanisms in our brain to try to keep our species alive through reproduction. But it is our consciousness in our brains that we have the ability to think our decisions through. You can filter through these instincts and emotions and formulate logic and reason if you are open to it. See, even in the Bible, Paul told the Corinthian church, when they were going through the persecution from Rome, he told them that it was better for them to remain single and to not marry or to have families because of the present distress. So even Paul used common sense in his situation. We live in a world of suffering, but we here in the West have been insulated from suffering to the degree that other places have. Therefore, we're able to sit on our asses and talk about the great and wonderful God who can do any and everything. But if you took your asses to any one of these places, you would quickly find out how useless your God is. That's the reason why people in South America are willing to drown to try to get to America, to the land of opportunity, because Jesus isn't doing so well in Mexico and in Brazil and in Venezuela and all of these other places that are being ruled and overrun with cartels and crime and children being kidnapped. And these are highly religious territories. But yet God is not intervening to do anything for them. They have to come to America, the land of Babylon, as the Christians call it, to get relief. But in the end, ladies and gentlemen, we all will succumb to this one thing, and that is death. And death is the only merciful being, if there is one. Death is merciful because it puts an end to human suffering. So those of you out there that are in the child-free movement, I salute you. I believe that you should live your life for yourself. Take care of yourself first, as long as you're not harming another human being, because you want to be able to sleep with yourself at night, knowing that I did what I wanted to do without hurting another human being. The only time you should hurt another human being is in defense of your life. But the idea is you want to live a peaceful life. But you don't want to be a pushover and for someone to walk over you. If you're going to stay in this life, engaged in this life, then yes, you should have the ability to defend yourself. In 40 years of life, ladies and gentlemen, as we look around, I see the meaninglessness of our life and the uselessness of a divine being. Therefore, I believe in self-belief, self-sufficiency. I don't care who you are under the sound of my voice. If you have the opportunity to change your situation or improve your situation, then do it with all your might. If you are in a relationship right now that is dragging you down, emotionally, financially, get rid of it now and let it go. If there is a job or anything that is draining you down emotionally, mentally, to where you want to harm somebody or yourself, it's time for you to find something else. Don't allow anything or anyone to stand in the way of who you want to be. I made that decision at 18 years old, and it put a rift between me and my father because of my disagreement with the religion. And even though I made my way back to the religion, we still didn't agree on things the same way. But I lived with that decision, and I don't regret that decision, because I'm going to be me regardless of whatever I have to go through. I'm going to be me. It was someone who once said, "Give me liberty or give me death." That is the attitude that I possess. I'm either going to be free to be me or give me death. If there is anything that I can teach you on this channel, in the 40 years of life that I've been on this earth, living for yourself is the only way to live on this planet. And what that doesn't mean is that you don't help anyone, although I don't believe you are obligated to help anyone. But there is a certain satisfaction that you have of helping someone who is suffering, because we're all in this together. White, black, green, yellow, I don't care what you look like, who you are. We all drink from the cup of suffering because we all partake in this thing called life. We don't have to agree with everything with each other. We are a part of life. We are a part of suffering together. So we should rise above it together. I give you these simplistic tools. Self-belief. Believing in yourself and not wasting your life following God. I did it for 20 years. It does not work. 100 years from now, as I said, none of this is going to matter. So you need to do whatever it is that brings you happy right now. If you're not going to self-delete, if you're not going to hit the eject button on life, then you're going to have to do what makes you happy. Do what makes you happy, content, and fulfilled. And you're not going to find it in a goddamn relationship. Just look at the divorce numbers in this country. All that is just, it's television and it's movies. Relationships don't play out the way you see on television. Yes, there are an exception to the rule where there might be two people that just are so perfect for each other, but they're also going to have to deal with the pain of losing one another too. So attachments will bring you pain. If you want to play that game, that's totally up to you. That's your decision. But understand that you will suffer because life is going to take them away from you. Bringing children into this world is the most selfish thing that we can do. And that's the type of selfishness that's not a good thing, because you're introducing another life into a world of suffering that they unnecessarily don't need to experience. If there's any advice that I can give you, the next generation going forward, do not bring children into this world to participate in this circus called life. I fell asleep at the wheel of my vehicle a couple of years ago and crashed into a tree. And sometimes I tell you, I'm disappointed that I didn't succumb to that crash, because life is meaningless and it's pointless, and all the striving and the working, it's all for nothing. You will accumulate all that you have only for someone else to eventually live in the places that you have purchased, the cars you have driven, the clothes you have worn. But for some reason I still live, and so while I'm here, I'm going to continue to push my message on this channel, is to live for yourself, to be enough for yourself. The reality of it is, ladies and gentlemen, all of us cannot be good looking and as men, tall and handsome and successful. Ladies, all of you are not going to look like supermodels and celebrity women and things like that. Whatever way you look is what you're going to have to be comfortable with. And you have to love yourself enough that it doesn't matter if another human being finds you attractive or loves you or not. Who gives a damn? Because it's all superficial anyways. I'm quite thankful that I don't have these superstar celebrity looks, because all you're going to gravitate towards you is fake people anyways. Because people only care about you when they think they can benefit from you. Because the minute that you lose those looks, guess what happens? They're going to leave you. If they like you for your looks, when your looks are gone, they're going to leave you. If they got with you for the money, when the money's gone, they're going to leave you. There are women out there, it's a mating strategy. It's the same thing with men. Men generally look for beauty. Women look for certain type of genes to reproduce. This is a biological game. And when you got what you have gotten, you're no longer valuable. That's why you see a lot of relationships after the children are born, it usually falls apart after that. Because monogamy is not a natural thing. We as human beings were only meant to reproduce, to survive, and that's it. This idea of cohabitating together doesn't work that way. In nature, most of the men, the males, when they mate with the female, they move on. They move on. And you see that play out in human interaction, but because humans don't understand themselves, they keep thinking that this monogamy thing is supposed to work, and it doesn't. It works in very rare cases, and a lot of times it's because the women can't leave, or it's because of religious obligations. And that's why you're starting to see more of the poly relationships and open relationships now, because people are understanding that being with one person your whole entire life is not realistic. It's not in our biological wiring. But my point is that you should never get attached to anyone thinking that you can possess them, that they're going to stick around and be with you forever. Either death is going to take them, or they're going to just simply leave you, because you're never going to stay good looking or whatever it is for the rest of your life. We all are on the decline. So you had better start loving yourself and find self-sufficiency within yourself. Life is meaningless, ladies and gentlemen. We're all going to the grave, or we're going to be cremated, whatever it is. And then we're going to be maggot food. We will be chemically dispersed to be a benefit to the earth in some form or fashion, but our consciousness will go away. Because in my opinion, it all begins and ends in the brain. I don't know any other consciousness outside of this physical world I live in, and I have no reason to believe that it's going to continue after I'm dead. So I just simply leave you with this as I celebrate 40 years on this planet. From what I have experienced in my subjective view, is that life is meaningless and God is useless. So therefore, believe in yourself. Pursue happiness as long as you're not harming another human being. Live for yourself as long as you're not harming another human being. Enjoy the fruits of your labor. As the book of Ecclesiastes says, eat, drink, and be merry, because you're not taking any of this with you. In the grave, there is no knowledge, no wisdom, no nothing. It's over with. If you made it this far, I thank you for listening. And remember, as I always say, that life is suffering, but death is mercy. And if they have to speak for God, they've already lost the debate. Until next time.